we're opening Fort Rochester. We're doing pilots. We want to learn. We opened another one in Brevard, North Carolina. And people say, what? Why Brevard, North Carolina? It's in the middle of nowhere. And we said, exactly. It's in the middle of nowhere. We just opened another one in Coraopolis, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh. And what we're finding is the need is there. Not surprising. The center in Rochester, open a little over a year now, a year and a half now, has already served over 5,000 families and soldiers with over 17,000 different types of needs. You know, what's interesting, of the soldiers coming in and asking for help in these centers, about 15% are active duty. Of the families coming in, 30% active duty families. Because what we're finding, and you all already know this, is when the soldier deploys, a lot of times the spouse takes the kids and goes back to home. They're away from the installation. They're out there with us, where we live now. But they need services. And they try to get help, try to take the kids to the doctor. And what does the system say? You're not in TRICARE. What do you mean I'm not in TRICARE? Sure, I'm in TRICARE. No, you're not in TRICARE. So they come see our Army Strong Center in Rochester, and Mary Ann, the lady that works there for us, says, where's your husband stationed? Well, he's stationed at Fort Campbell. You're in TRICARE South. Rochester's in TRICARE North. That's what the problem is. And you'll never get help until you change the enrollment. Oh, nobody ever told me that. I didn't realize that. We've already had 600 family requests coming in Brevard, North Carolina. You know, kind of strange, out there in the middle of nowhere. One of the first ladies I met when we went down, Laura and I went down for the opening, came up and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I said, why? She said, my husband's in 5.2 Stryker. You know, they deployed to Afghanistan. Some of you know this. They took a pretty good beating. I couldn't stay there. I had to come home. So I brought the kids back here to Brevard. The Army didn't pay for me to bring my kids and family back here to Brevard. The good news is my husband's coming home. The bad news is I don't know how to get back. You know? And the lady in our Strong Center said, leave it up to us. Within a matter of hours, calling around to the different community organizations, she had the plane tickets for them to go home to Fort Lewis, serving our families out there. So we're going to continue to run these pilots because it's working, but more importantly, because the need is out there, and it's not a need for the reserve. It's a need for the Army, for all of us. We're going to open our next one up in Oregon. We've got a congressman in Oregon who's already come to us and said, hey, I need something like this in Oregon because we don't have any installations. We got a congressman in West Virginia that's already called the VA and talked to General Shinseki and said, I want one of these at a VA hospital in Beckley, West Virginia. You know, General Shinseki calls me and says, what's going on? I said, sir, you know, there's support out there for this. And what it needs to be and what we want to be is we want to be an extension of ACS. That's what it really is. It's not about the Army Reserve. It's about taking all those services you want on your installation and let's put them out there in the communities where we have soldiers dispersed and families dispersed around this nation. There's a need, and we're going to work together, Rick and I, on how do we make this part of the Army plan. Not an Army Reserve plan, it's part of the Army plan. The other one, I'll tell you, is both in Rochester and both at Coraopolis just recently. Who else showed up at our grand openings? Gold Star families. Gold Star families who said, this is what I need. I told Rick a couple of months ago, a gentleman in Rochester who said, my son was killed in action and he was at Fort Hood, Texas. And he said, I've never been to Fort Hood. I don't know anybody at Fort Hood. My home's in Rochester. This is what I need here at Rochester. You know, we've got to be an extension of the SAOS program, an extension of ACS. Pipe it out there to the communities and let us be part of that success for you. Second thing I'll tell you real quick that we're doing that's success is our employer partner program. We partnered with employers starting about 2 years ago. Dan Nichols, sitting down here on the front row from Inova Healthcare, was our first partner. And what we said is, we have this wealth of talent in the reserve component that's called soldiers. Men and women wearing uniforms who are trained, they have a different set of values, a different set of ethics, integrity, a work ethos, and oh, by the way, they have a lot of skills. What do you need? You need a good workforce in America. And so Inova Healthcare stepped up and said, let us partner with you. Today, we are taking soldiers, we're taking spouses, and Inova's hiring them to work in their hospitals. And I'm keeping them in the reserve in uniform in my hospitals. And so we're partnering together to share this talent. Talent for America. We've partnered now with over 1,200 employers across America to produce law enforcement officers for America, truck drivers for America, medical professionals for America, mechanics for America, you name it. And the industry and the employers now are embracing this wholeheartedly and saying this is it's a patriotic thing to do, yeah, but it's a business strategy. This is a heck of a workforce. We've got men and women in uniform that understand mission comes first. They have that warrior ethos. Had a unit that just recently came back from Afghanistan. The commander said, I had 19 soldiers unemployed when we came home. Today I have one unemployed soldier. Using the program, contacting employers in their area, he said, we got all 18 out of 19 jobs. The 19th guy can't decide what he wants to do yet. He may want to go back to school. So I'm telling you, employers across America are embracing the military. And I think you'll hear from Dan later in one of the panels, and maybe he can tell you more about how beneficial this has been for Inova. But my message to you is we're all one family. There is no difference. We're all sacrificing, we're all making a commitment, and we need our families if we're going to retain our soldiers. So look forward to your questions. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. And now to complete our panelist presentations, Major General Raymond Carpenter.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's my honor and privilege to be here. I'm the acting director of the Army National Guard. To tail up on General Lynch's reference to a sitcom, I've been at this now for be 17 months here on the 29th of October, and I feel like I'm starring in a sitcom that could be canceled at any day. I want to talk to you a little bit about where we've come in the Army National Guard. Next slide, please. And this kind of tells a story, and it's been repeated in a couple different versions up here already. If you look at the starburst on the upper left-hand corner and the upper right-hand corner, that tells the story of where we've been since 9/11. And if you look at the starburst on the opposite ends, that tells you the success we've had with what we're doing. And with regard to the family programs, I'd tell you that before 9/11, it's almost like we were in the Stone Age with regard to family programs. Family programs were auxiliaries. Family programs were nice to have, not required. But since 9/11, we've found out inside of the Army National Guard that they are critical to our organization. We've found that the families might as well have signed the oath of enlistment with their family member, because they are just as surely inside the Army and the Army National Guard as their member. And we've come to the understanding of that relationship. I was just talking to the family program manager from Tennessee, and we were talking about the 278, which just came back from their second trip downrange, and I asked her, is it better this time? And she said yes, but she admitted we still have a way to go. And that really is the status for us We've learned a lot, but we've got a lot left to accomplish. Next slide. Resiliency is something that we see in our families. Thank you across the board for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your resiliency. After 9 years of war, resiliency is a key part of our organization. It's key to what we do. General Stoltz talked a little bit about what the Army Reserve is doing in terms of establishing programs, centers around the United States. Across the National Guard, we have 378 family assistance centers. They are at many of the 3,000 locations that we have got across the Army National Guard in this great nation. If you meet a soldier, if you see an Army family in hometown America, that family and that soldier are more than likely a member of the reserve component, either the Army National Guard or the Army Reserve. Could I just see a show of hands of the Army National Guard and the reserve component families we have here today? That's fantastic. The obvious difference, as General Stoltz talked a little bit about with the reserve component, is in a couple of areas. One is we're geographically dispersed. We're not on an installation. And by the way, that's not all bad, because there are communities that wrap their arms around many of the units that deploy, whether they happen to be Guard or Reserve. People ask me about whether this nation is at war. Does this nation as a whole, do they acknowledge that we are at war? I can tell you that when you mobilize a unit in Wheatland, Wyoming, the people in Wheatland, Wyoming know that this nation is at war. And just as surely as the installation at Fort Hood, you'll find the Wheatland, Wyomings will wrap their arms around those families, around those soldiers, and they are incredibly proud of the service that are provided by those service members as well as the unit. Now, the other half of the story, as General Jones noted, is there is an obligation for us to provide support to families in a dispersed environment, a geographically dispersed environment. And the challenge for us is to figure out how to do that, to meet the expectations, to provide service to the families that's equal to the service of the service member and the service of the families. And to the extent that we're successful in doing that, we will continue with those numbers that you saw of 105% retention and 362,000 end strength against a required strength of 358,000. With regard to the family assistance centers, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff challenged the adjutant generals as a group a year and a half ago to take on the task of supporting family programs regardless of component, regardless of service. And the adjutant generals have taken that on. If you Google inside of New Jersey, for instance, and you look for what's going on in the military side of the New Jersey National Guard, and you're looking for a family assistance center, you'll find the unit locations and you'll find the assistance centers there. And you'll be able to go to that assistance center and you'll be able to go get assistance face to face. Now, we are not in the National Guard in competition with the Army Reserve in this particular area, or the Army. As General Stoltz pointed out, and as General Lynch pointed out, we are one Army. We are closer across the three components of the Army than we have ever been in my 40-some years of service. That's pretty darn important. And it's more than that, it's precious. And we ought not to part company here. We ought to partner with each other, and we ought to build on each other's capabilities. And we ought to get to where we can truly say, Army strong across all the components, regardless of Guard, Reserve, or active. Comprehensive soldier fitness. We talked a little bit about master resilience training going on in Pennsylvania. We are about to establish one of those centers to train our soldiers and family members on master resilience training in the Professional Education Center for the National Guard in Little Rock. We hope to have that established sometime in the next 6 months. The requirement for master resilience trainers, regardless of whether you're in uniform or not, has grown incredibly. Inside the National Guard, we've got a serious suicide problem. We have doubled the suicide rate that we had last year. Now, part of that has to do with reporting, but also has to do with our responsibility to build resilience inside of our formations and inside of the people part of our organization. Most of our suicides, over 60%, have never been deployed. So it's not necessarily a mobilization problem. We think when somebody has financial problems, when they have emotional problems, when they have relationship problems, maybe it's a problem that they've never been required to cope with those kinds of issues before. There's not enough resiliency there for them to do what my generation used to do, and when something bad happened to you, the answer was suck it up, move on. That's not necessarily the approach that our young people use now. And for me, it's kind of a foreign thought, but to have something happen to you where you think that an option, a reasonable alternative, is taking your own life is just beyond my comprehension. But that is what we're seeing across not just the formations in the Army, but across our society. I think when we look back at 2010, when we get the CDC statistics, we'll find an increased rate of suicide across this whole country, across our society. What a great thought that just like bringing people into the Army and building them physically, making them stronger, that we could bring people into the Army and we could make them more resilient, make them more capable of coping with life. What a thought. And it's a great thought. And it's something that's inside of our Army, inside of our Army as a learning organization. And I tell you that we are going to step up to that. We are going to take the Master Resilience Training Program on full bore, along with some other programs we've got out there. The Kansas National Guard has a great program on resiliency and coping with life's failures, life's challenges. And so, this is a great opportunity for us to take care of our people. Next slide. And finally, I'd tell you that there are 54 states and territories and districts out there. And each one of those states, territories, and districts has a governor. Each one has an adjutant general. Each one has a program that is reaching out to the soldiers inside of their state or territory and district, regardless of what uniform you wear or what component you are. And the effort here is to provide state-level programs to you as a customer and take care of you. And again, what I'd ask you to do is, regardless of where you live, whether it's in Tennessee or whether it's in my home state of South Dakota or whether it's Texas, wherever, go out and Google the National Guard and you'll find these kind of programs that are out there. New Hampshire and Ohio have signed MOUs with local care providers, and so soldiers and families can get care, behavioral health care, for little or no cost. Inside of California, we've got embedded behavioral health specialists who drill with our guardsmen. And so when the guardsmen come back and when they're having problems, they've got two things. One, they've got the availability of the care by the care provider there. And number two, it lessens the stigma associated with going to see somebody about behavioral health problems. And that's really the trick. It goes to the discussion that General Lynch had about Fort Hood with the alcohol example. To the extent that we can dispel the stigma associated with people, deciding to seek help for behavioral health problems, we're going to be better off and we're going to be a healthier force. Peer-to-peer, buddy-to-buddy, About 6 months ago, we had an engineer company from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan return after a year in Afghanistan. That little engineer company of a little less than 100 soldiers had over 200 IED hits, strikes, as they did road clearance operations inside of Afghanistan. And they're now home, and they are in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and they need help. And the help that's being provided by Michigan is the peer-to-peer, buddy-to-buddy program. And that program is that on a regular basis, both the squad leaders and the people that deployed with that unit connect with each other. Behavioral health specialists are reaching out to these soldiers, checking to see their status, checking to see how the families are doing, making sure that they are working through the reintegration process. In Minnesota, they have Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, which is a program that was initiated after the 1st to the 34th returned from Iraq. You might say, what's special about the 1st to the 34th? Well, the 1st to the 34th mobilized in 2005 and spent 6 months at the mobilization station away from home. They went to Iraq for 12 months, and after they'd been there for 11 months, they got notified that they were being extended for 3 months. And so they spent 15 months in theater. And when they got home, the demobilization process was a couple weeks on top of that. That unit spent 23 months away from home. And the impact to the families in the 1st to the 34th that were in Minnesota, that were in Iowa, that were in Nebraska, was incredible. And that caused the communities, the states, the adjutant generals to reach out. And that was where the Yellow Ribbon program started, which is something that we're using across all the components now. And it's a great program, and it's a program to support families. It's a program to support soldiers. So again, I appreciate your service. I appreciate your sacrifice. But more than that, I appreciate your honesty. I've never seen any organization, any audience that we get in front of that will be more frank and more blunt. And I was told that if you think this audience is frank here today, you should have been here last year. But the real story here is if you don't tell us the story, if you don't tell us what's wrong, we can't fix it. So please, look forward to your questions.
Thank you, gentlemen, and we will take a couple of questions. Please remember when you ask your question to identify yourself and the community where you are from. I'd like to go to the other room this time and let them start with the first question, if we could, please.
Good afternoon. Can you hear us?
Yes.
First, I have a comment, and then I have, oh, I apologize. My name is Holly Paulsbo, and I am from Fort Bliss, Texas. My first comment is I'd like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here and to hear us out. That really says a lot that you guys really do care about what's going on in our communities. The second is actually an idea proposal for you. There's a large number of spouses that are currently seeking mental health due to deployments and the stress of the economy, etc., as well as child abuse and neglect. A lot of families are also being chaptered out because they do not have backup family care plans, because it's either their spouse or they're trying to escape their family, or their family is in economic stress. I currently run a program for military families that is an emergency shelter for children. It allows them to stay for 24 hours to 90 days. Now, this has helped many, many families within our community and allowed them, if their spouses have gone into the hospital while their husbands are deployed, their kids can come and stay with us. Those children that have been abused or neglected come and stay while their spouses get the help that they need. I really think that this would be a great, great program for many installations. That way they're not losing their children to the system, and they're not having to be chaptered out because they can't get the care that they need because they don't have 24-hour child care. Who answers it, right?
There's always going to be a pregnant pause up here. We look to see who's going to answer that.
No, that's okay.
No, I got that. First off, thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you're doing at Fort Bliss, providing shelter for the family members. You just got to know that every Army leader acknowledges today that the stress on our soldiers and the stress in our families is, as I said before, almost unbearable. We acknowledge the fact that we got to do a better job with behavioral health counselors, military family life consultants, financial assistance coordinators, those things, to reach out to not just our soldiers, but their family members as well.
Right.
And you got to know that, you know, my biggest frustration, Command, in all the installations now is we're not sharing best practices very well. What you're doing there at Fort Bliss, we did something similar at Fort Hood, and we just have to make sure we share best practices so we can all get better together.
Okay, thank you. I just want to note, too, that a lot of us, you know, they expect us to rely on one another, but there's a lot of families that are stressed out themselves, so even though we have good friends within our community, we don't want to overburden them as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. We have a question right up in the front here.
Hi, my name is Sharon Thacker, and I'm the FRG leader for the 805th MP Company. And my question is for Major General Jones. If a reserve component soldier is activated or placed on Title 10 orders or whatever the whole mumbo-jumbo is for that, for them to be active duty, and they have an exceptional family member and they enroll the children in that program, once they return and they're no longer on active duty, is that child released from that program, or are they still eligible, even though they're no longer active duty, to receive help?
I think you know the answer to that question, but let me try. The answer is if the soldier isn't on active status, the soldier doesn't have that entitlement. So the answer to that is frankly no. Is that something we're looking at? Yes. Is that something our families told us during our focus groups? Yes. Do we have them in our plan to attack every single concern? Yes. So that's a due out for us, and we acknowledge that.
They deployed back in 2001. I was not there during that time, but the soldier got hurt while over there. And so he was brought back to, I guess it's the Army hospital or wherever before he could come home. Well, he has 3 children. All 3 are exceptional children. So once he came back injured, they couldn't get any assistance because, you know, of course, the Wounded Warriors, all that stuff wasn't in place back in 2002, 2003 for them. So she had not only 3, but 3 exceptional children and now a wounded spouse. And he has since left the unit as of last year because he developed cancer. So in addition to her having to deal with those 3 exceptional children and a spouse who was injured and now has cancer, I mean, it weighed heavily on them. And he finally said, you know, I got to give it up. You know, we got to do something for these people.
You know, you are bringing me up something that we work very hard to do, and that is to work the eaches of the program. That is a starfish to us. We will work tirelessly to provide some relief. And one of the good things that goes to what we talked about earlier, we have a very generous public. The public is very supportive of our soldiers. When we hear things like this, remember I said comprehensive coordinated support. We will shake down every tree. We will do whatever we can to link that family so they can get the care and support they need.
But
so
it goes back.
You have my promise.
But it goes back to how we get the information out to everybody.
Absolutely.
Because even as an FRG leader, I fall up under great command, and they do typically give us most of all the information that we need, but it is some stuff that I hear about from other people that we didn't know about, and if I hear it, I'll bring it to their attention. But we've got to get all information out to family members, not just rely on the soldier to tell the family member. We have to do it. Y'all are looking at us as FRG leaders to educate these families, but we don't have all of the necessary tools and resources to do so.
I totally agree with you. There's a growing capability to provide information. Again, that was one of the shortcomings that our families told us. Our soldier isn't bringing the information. How can you get it to us? And one of the efforts that we have undertaken is when that soldier and that family visits ACS, we're saying, would you like to sign up for our push system of information? And they're signing up now, and we're getting information.
Thank you so much. We're going to take a question from the other room now.
This comment is from Major General Jones. My name is Tanisha Wilkes, and I'm from Fort Bragg, FRG leader. I am one of those parents with a special needs child. My son is 13 with cerebral palsy, and he's in a wheelchair and is nonverbal. My concern is through CYS, there are no activities for them. I am not able to take him because he needs one-on-one care. And so he's not able to participate in a lot of the sports and activities. I am able to take him to a FCC provider with a whole bunch of babies, and that they are not wheelchair accessible. I feel like we need to address this problem because these kids are being left out. Whether we go and set them up with a buddy system to help them with some of the sports activities or provide one-on-one aids for these children. Also, respite care is great. I receive 40 hours of respite care, but unfortunately it's not enough. I am at Fort Bragg, which is my home, and I have a great support system with my family, but others are not as fortunate. And we need to address these problems because some of these mothers, it's just too much, especially with their husband gone, a special needs child, and other children. And I think we need to look at this a little bit closer. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more question in the back corner of the room back here.
I want to second that for the lady next door. My son is also special needs, and there are no programs. And what you were talking about earlier today is how far or how soon are those programs going to be implemented so we don't have to go back when we move from post to post, that we have to start all over again. And then when we do go from post to post, one post will have one program and it's all great, but then we go to another post and there's nothing there for our children and they get left out.
Yes, I appreciate that comment because that's exactly what our focus groups told us. We again are looking at standardizing programs because the thing that gets under my skin the most is when I hear a family says, I was at Fort A, I go to Fort B, and I don't get consistent support. So through the efforts of the strategic plan, we are attacking one bite at a time. Sometimes it seems like an elephant, but I promise you, we are biting one bite at a time, and we will get this problem in these situations under control. Promise you that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our distinguished panel of speakers. I know there were many questions and you didn't get to ask, but please remember if you would like to ask those questions to send them to familyprograms@ausa.org. We have one more presentation. Please don't leave. We have one more presentation this afternoon. Our final presentation will be the military to medicine. Please welcome Mr. Daniel Nichols and Ms. Patty Datos.
Well, thank you for your attention. I know it's getting late in the day, and we'll move ourselves along quickly. But this is an important issue that was brought up a little bit earlier. That idea of underemployment. Underemployment is a significant issue that is impairing the economic success of our military families. And it is our goal to do something about that. Every MOS deserves a job. Every military occupational specialty deserves to have a civilian equivalency that they can transition into, and that is not the case right now. And we're working hard in health care to at least to start that approach. The partnership with the Army Reserve and General Stolz that he has spoken to, without them we wouldn't be where we are today with more than 500 hires, more than 1,200 students just over the last 18 months. I have 6 military spouses starting next Monday into new jobs and new careers.